I have the pleasure in welcoming all the participants for today's webinar on doing business between India and Hong Kong, which is being organized by R&M India. R&M India is a consulting firm operating in Delhi for 77 years, spanning 3 generations, and has branch offices in Gurgaon, Bangalore, Mumbai, Raipur, and London. R&M has recently entered into an MOU with CW, CP, an accounting and consulting firm in Hong Kong, for rendering services to clients on reciprocal basis in Hong Kong and vice versa. The relations between India and Hong Kong date back to 1840s, and presently it covers various segments like investment, finance, shipping, logistics, etc. Hong Kong was India's 12th largest export market in 22-23, and the bilateral trade has increased by 38%. Hong Kong occupies the 14th position in FDI equity inflows into India, with a cumulative FDI of approximately 4.7 billion US dollars. Hong Kong houses many Indian professionals in sectors like banking, IT, and shipping. Financial majors in India have regional headquarters in Hong Kong. Before starting with the session, I would like to introduce and convey my gratitude to all the panelists who have joined us to share their experience and expertise. Thomas Wang is one of the 2 co-founding partners of CW, which is an international professional accounting and advisory firm based in Hong Kong. He looks after the business development and strategies of the firm, developing the overseas market. He established Latin American Spanish Business Advisory, which is exclusively serving Spanish and Portuguese-speaking clients. He has created his own ecosystem of business partners that provide resources to startups that possess the potential to drive sustainable growth. His persistence in working closely with his technology partners, including the Hong Kong Science and Technology Park, Cyberport, Zero, AirWallets, King D, etc., has become an essential strategy in guiding his professional practice to new era. Welcome, Thomas. We have Ashima Sood, who is with GAL Solicitors Hong Kong since September 2014, and presently a senior associate. She has wide-ranging experience in commercial litigation, arbitration, dispute resolution, and focuses on issues involving breach of contract, joint ventures, shareholders' agreements, asset tracing and Mareva injunctions, SFC and ICAC investigations, as well as tort and negligence claims. She has studied law in ILS Pune in India and completed her master's at University College, London. Prior to moving to Hong Kong, Asima was a practicing lawyer with Barucha and Partners, Mumbai, besides having had exposure as an advisory practice at KPMG, India. Welcome, Ashima. We have Jagrati Seth, who's a partner at R&M India at Mumbai and heads the transaction and regulatory advisory services. She has 25 years of experience, having worked with large business houses catering to various sectors such as healthcare, pharma, infrastructure, real estate, the financial markets, chemicals, logistics, etc. She has a significant experience in structuring and implementing transactions. Jagriti specializes in corporate restructuring, mergers, amalgamations, demergers, and capital restructuring, valuations, private equity deals and acquisitions, corporate laws, and FEMA exchange control regulations, matters relating to BFR, NCLT, etc. Prakash Jain is a partner at R&M India, leading the direct tax team at Bangalore, and comes with around 20 years experience in the field of corporate and international tax, GST laws. He has domestic and international companies, and he advises them on various tax matters, including structuring, due diligence, and compliance. He specializes in litigation and assessment representation at all forums. Lastly, I would like to introduce the moderator for today's session, Raghu Marwa, who is the managing partner and CEO of R&M India. He, after having exposure at the Big Four as a chartered accountant, joined the R&M team. He has experience of more than 20 years and specializes in advising and structuring businesses overseas for Indian corporates, building India entry strategies for foreign clients, cross-border holdings, M&A, and valuations. He oversees the consulting services and international practice of the firm. Further, I hope this session will be interactive and informative for everyone who has joined us today. I would now like to hand it over to Raghu for opening the session.
Thank you so much for your kind words, Mr. Marwa. It means a lot that your blessings and encouragement are there with us. So I'd like to start by quoting Albert Einstein, who said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. So I hope for all the participants here today, our very esteemed panel would be able to break down the issues of doing business between India and Hong Kong in such a simple and easy fashion that all of you would be able to understand and also explain to everyone else that you meet that you attended this amazing webinar and you had some great takeaways from it. With that, I'd like to share my personal experience of doing business in India and Hong Kong and talk about not only the friendly atmosphere and the work colleagues that I have interacted and met over the past 10-15 years of doing work in Hong Kong, but also place on record my appreciation for the Consul General of India at Hong Kong, Mr. Twant Khanalia, who has been a great touch point and really helps further this cause of India and Hong Kong business in a really big way. With that, I'd like to start with our first topic. We've got 4 topics today: ease of company setup in Hong Kong, recruitment of employees and key employment regulations in Hong Kong, transfer pricing and tax issues in India, and ease of setting up company in Gift City in India. So the first topic, of course, is being headed by Mr. Thomas Wong. So if I could start off by asking you about the India-Hong Kong business relationship, how Hong Kong continues to be such an important destination, and what are your thoughts about setting up in Hong Kong and doing business in Hong Kong? Over to you, Mr. Thomas Wong.
Thank you very much, Mr. Raul, and to the Marwas. Thank you very much. And first of all, I would like to express my deepest gratitude to the Indian Consulate in Hong Kong, who has bridged me to R&M And then, of course, R&M then later bridged, to the law firm called Gale in Hong Kong. So Ashima is here. So, my first word that I would like to express, to all of you is a very good network. So always be a first mover. I'm not Albert Einstein, but I'm Thomas Wong. I just like to say something that a lot of people in Hong Kong, do not understand why India is so important in today's economic landscape. So for me, as an international guy that has been developing so many international networks, I felt that, a few months ago, that India should not be left out in my roadmap. So henceforth, I connected to the Indian consulate in Hong Kong, and the Indian consulate so kindly connected me to R&M, a very reputable accounting firm in India, where they have offices in many cities, in India. So the first word that I would like to, express, to all the audience, here listening to this webinar is be a first mover. In business, if you invest a little bit of the time, try something new, you just waste a little bit of your time if the gamble is not correct. But now I think that the gamble so far for me is correct, in the sense that in my firm now, I think I'm the one of the first mover in Hong Kong as an accounting firm. I got one full-time Indian staff, one part-time Indian staff, and I'm going to hire 2 more Indian interns in Bangalore in India, whereby, we can now use internet, IT, to connect, to India. And just now, the senior Mr. Mahua mentioned about IT. I would like to bring in this topic, IT. India is very strong in IT. For Hong Kong, we can think of that we can subcontract some of the work to India via R&M, via this accounting firm, and they will help you. I will be the testament to make sure that, R&M won't run away, at least. So I'm going to hire 2 more interns in a very famous university called Christ University in Bangalore. And this is the start of my Indian journey, apart from having 1 full-time staff here and 1 part-time Indian staff. Now, just now, the young Mr. Mahua asked me, why Hong Kong and why India? Because, Hong Kong is an international financial hub. We are at the forefront. We are the window for our motherland, China, and we are the financial hub. And then a lot of Indian businessmen, what I have encountered is that they are very interested, they are very focused in pharmaceutical, electronics and automobiles, and also textile. So if they want to do business with China, be it, subcontracting or be it sourcing, so Hong Kong is the place that we can rely upon to bring Indian businessmen via Hong Kong to my motherland, China, or reverse, Chinese businessmen going through Hong Kong to India, where a lot of Chinese businessmen, they do a lot of investment now in India in e-commerce, in also automobiles, and also, of course, in IT. So this is the very first message I want to bring for all of you. And of course, in using Hong Kong to go to China, or Chinese businessmen using Hong Kong to go to India, we need a Hong Kong limited company. It is very easy to form a Hong Kong limited company. The ease is very simple, meaning that, basically you just need one corporate, one shareholder or one director. It can be an individual or be a corporate, and then, of course, registration, with the company registry is very easy nowadays. And of course, now we are doing a lot of IT work right now. My firm, CWCPA, we have registered with the company registry that you don't have to come to Hong Kong to incorporate your company. All you need is to, find a trustworthy CPA like our firm, I think so. I've been in business for over 40 years already. I'm 63. So, our firm, we have registered with the company registry in Hong Kong. That is to say that overseas businessmen from India or Chinese businessmen, if they want to form a Hong Kong limited company, they don't have to come all the way to Hong Kong. They just look for me and I will do their filing, with the company registry electronically through IT. We have registered with them, they have acknowledged they have accepted our registration that we can do online. And then why Hong Kong? Because Hong Kong, I just want to tell all of you why Hong Kong to China or why China to Hong Kong to India, because our tax rate is 16.5%. And then the first 2 million accessible profit, we are only liable to 8.25% profit tax rate. I think this is, if not the lowest, it would be very low in the world. So this is something that I want to draw the attention to everyone. Of course, the second point, as an accountant, I won't talk about the law because we have Ashima here representing another law firm in Hong Kong called Gale, which is pretty famous in Hong Kong also. So I will leave it to her afterwards. Okay, so 2 points I mentioned. The ease of registration a company, you don't have to fly all the way to Hong Kong to register. It can be done via me, and then I'll do it electronically for you. And then the incorporation of a company is very easy. You just need to have one shareholder and one director individually or a corporate, Of course, I have some PowerPoints, to show how to incorporate a company, but I will pass it to Mr. Raul. And then if you feel like you want to disseminate for me, to the attendees today, you do so. I don't want to occupy too much of the time here for everyone. And then the next topic I would like to say is that we are talking about now, I'm talking about more on a macro point of view, macro. As an accountant, I talk about macro, but I'm not talking about micro debit and credit, Macro point of view is that, we are in Asia, India, China, and Hong Kong. We are all in Asia. We are now talking about regional cooperation. So now this is testified by me, Mr. Raul Yu, your firm RNM, and also Gail. This is the regional cooperation between 3 firms, 3 professional firms. This is very significant, a milestone in Hong Kong. And I hope, I can preach to my government here in Hong Kong. I can also preach in China why the cooperation can be done through the private sector, like me, like you, and like Gail's firm, So we do it. This is what I call cooperation, not just only from a regional perspective, but from a firm basis. So, of course, there will be many incentives in Hong Kong, like because of our proximity to my motherland, there are many preferences that we can use, which I don't want to highlight here, because Hong Kong has signed a closer economic partnership agreement with our motherland many years ago. And then when people use this Hong Kong company, to do business with China, many preferences under this CEPA, closer economic partnership agreement, can be used. And of course, our Hong Kong government here, if you are an IT firm in India that want to come to Hong Kong to do business, and the senior Mr. Ma, who I just now mentioned about Science Park and Cyberport, about me, my bio, I can connect you to the 2 IT hubs in Hong Kong, which are heavily subsidized by the Hong Kong government. And of course, we provide subsidies. The Hong Kong government provides subsidies to overseas people, where I can help you to apply for these kind of subsidies. But of course, I charge a little bit. Okay, so well, the connection is here already. Mr. Raul, if I just want to show to everyone regional cooperation and why Hong Kong, and why India and why China, I think I have done my part already. And I've mentioned very briefly about the simplicity of incorporating a company in Hong Kong and the low tax regime in Hong Kong. If any legal points, I leave it to Ashima. Okay, all right. I think that's all from me.
Thank you, Mr. Wong, for a very detailed, deliberation. I have one last remark before we move to the next speaker or the next topic. Increasingly, Dubai and Singapore are becoming very important. Would you like to be very brief in trying to point out why Hong Kong continues to be an important jurisdiction as compared to Singapore and Dubai? Over to you.
Okay, all right. This comparison this kind of question has been asked to me many times by many different people. My point is now we are talking about, we are all in Asia. We are talking about regional cooperation. I do not see Singapore or Dubai as competitors. I see them as, cooperation targets, all right? But why I see that Hong Kong still can come at the forefront because of our motherland, because, we have a big population, 1.4 billion, and of course now it's surpassed by India already. So if the population of India has not surpassed China, I would not have, chosen India, to be my next journey, my next adventure, all right? So to me, Singapore and Dubai, they are cooperation partners, not competitors. But they remind me one thing, that I should not be complacent, that I should not always rest on my laurels, that I have to spearhead, to go forward, to drive Hong Kong, to drive my company, more internationally, and definitely in India would be my target in years to come. Have I answered your question, Mr. Raul?
Yes, thank you so much for that. And to conclude, you remind me of what Elon Musk had said some time back, which was that when Henry Ford made cheap, reliable cars, people said, nah, what's wrong with the horse? That was a huge bet he made, and it worked. So the same way what you said, we have to make a bet on India and Hong Kong, and the first mover advantage will go a long way. So with that, we'll move on to the next topic, which is recruitment of employees and key employee regulations in Hong Kong. So Ashima, for you, how easy is it to hire, fire, and maintain employment and compliances in Hong Kong, as well as to handle dispute resolutions? Over to you, Ashima.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you very much for the introduction, Raghu and Mr. Marwa. And thank you, Mr. Wong, for that insightful glimpse into Hong Kong. Just to add to what Mr. Wong just said, I think I want to emphasize to our audience that Hong Kong has consistently ranked amongst the top 3 places in the Ease of Doing Business Index, which is just next to countries like Singapore and New Zealand. So it's definitely a thriving business ecosystem with proximity to mainland China. It has a simple and low tax regime, like Mr. Wong mentioned, but also a well-established common law legal system, which is based on the rule of law and independence of judiciary. And most importantly, it has this distinct advantage of being a cultural melting pot of the East and West, and it's got its contours. You were asking about the difference between sort of Singapore and Dubai, but come to Hong Kong, it's got its beautiful beaches and mountains, within less than 30 minutes of this concrete jungle that we work in. I could go on and on, but I think all these attributes make Hong Kong so unique. And there's one more thing that I truly admire about Hong Kong, and it's that amidst all these adversities, it has always displayed such remarkable resilience. It's largely remained healthy and stable. There is this quality known as the Lion Rock spirit, which is deeply hardwired in this city. The Lion Rock is actually a famous mountain in Hong Kong that is shaped like a lion. And the term Lion Rock spirit originated from the theme song of an old TV series, if I'm not wrong. The spirit is basically the collective determination to be resilient against all odds. And I think I've personally witnessed that in the past 9 years that I've been here, be it the protests, the pandemic, or the typhoons, like we were just discussing. This place is tiny, it's densely populated, but still it has always successfully withstood every situation. And just like the rest of the world, of course, Hong Kong is still in an early recovery stage post-COVID, but the government is sparing no effort in reviving the economy, and it has recently announced several initiatives to attract businesses, investment, and talent into Hong Kong. For example, it has established a $30 billion investment fund just to attract enterprises here. And it has also launched a top talent pass visa scheme to attract talent into Hong Kong. As far as the recruitment of employees goes, it can be relatively easy, like Mr. Wong mentioned, to set up your business in Hong Kong. But I think there are several important issues and legal aspects, practical aspects that businesses need to take into consideration, especially when it comes to recruiting employees. And starting from recruitment, the process itself, there are various traditional and non-traditional ways in which businesses can recruit employees. Of course, you can publish advertisements, use recruitment agencies, or conduct personal interviews. But it's quite important to get this right. Equal opportunity is one of the core values which is intrinsic to Hong Kong. We have very strict anti-discrimination laws here, under which any discrimination on the grounds of sex, marital status, pregnancy, disability, family status, and race is considered unlawful. So unless you can show that the required attribute is in fact a genuine occupational qualification for the job. Also, employers in Hong Kong are liable to protect the data of their prospective, current, and former employees. So all practicable steps need to be taken to ensure that you're properly handling and dealing with personal data of the employees. For employment contracts, again, there are a few things that businesses need to keep in mind. The primary legislation here in Hong Kong, which governs employment rights and obligations, is the Employment Ordinance. And with a few minor exceptions, it applies to every employee who's engaged under a contract of employment. You can agree upon most of the terms, so medical benefits, housing allowances, bonuses, commissions, without any regard to any statutory provision. But there are certain minimum provisions that have to be complied with. So your minimum wage, maternity, paternity leave, severance pays, or even the payment period within which the wages should be paid. For remote working arrangements, they have become more common recently in response to the challenges posed by COVID. There is no specific legislation or regulation governing hybrid or remote work in Hong Kong, but employers can include such terms in their employment contracts. But I think if the employees are working remotely from, say, India, you may need to be obviously mindful of the tax implications and other employee protection laws that are applicable in India. Termination of contracts, again, very straightforward. Company can terminate an employee's contract by notice or by way of payment in lieu of notice. You can also summarily dismiss an employee without such notice or payment, but that's only in very specific and serious circumstances. So if the employee is engaged in some fraudulent or dishonest conduct, the threshold is quite high for a summary dismissal. And once the employment relationship has been terminated, an employer must make all the payments which are owed to the employee within 7 days of termination. Defaulting on wage payments is a criminal offense in Hong Kong, so businesses should be wary of that. Contravention of these provisions, without any excuse, can attract a fine of 350,000 Hong Kong dollars and imprisonment for 3 years, not just for the company, but also for the officers of the company if the non-payment is attributable to them. And the Labor Department in Hong Kong is notorious in that regard. It's very strict, and it very regularly prosecutes employers and their responsible persons, including directors, for offenses under the ordinance. As a disputes firm, Gall Solicitors, we regularly advise on contentious employment law matters. We act for both employers as well as employees on a range of employment issues. The Labor Tribunal here is the main forum for resolving employment disputes. The process is very, very simple, largely informal. No legal representation is allowed before the Labor Tribunal. But the parties are, of course, free to consult their lawyers in the background. The parties are also encouraged to attempt settlement discussions or conciliation before commencing proceedings. But the jurisdiction is limited to monetary claims only. So if you're claiming for an injunction or specific performance, then you need to go through the district court or the high court. Moving on to this final interesting topic, I was specifically asked by R&M or Raghu to speak about recruitment of expat employees in Hong Kong. So this last section, I'm just aiming to provide a very quick overview of the various visa schemes that are available in Hong Kong that I think might be useful for Indians who are looking to set up a business, join in a business, or looking to move here to Hong Kong. Of course, you will need a proper investment or an employment visa to come here, and there are a range of visa schemes that are available. For investment visas, we have a scheme that is basically it's specially designed for entrepreneurs who wish to establish a business here in Hong Kong. So you will need to show that you can make a substantial contribution to Hong Kong's economy. And there are many consideration factors, but basically you'll need to produce a 2-year business plan, a business turnover forecast, proof of financial resources such as bank statements, and you'll need to show the amount of capital investment, also the organizational structure of the business, and the number of jobs that you intend to create locally. If the application is successful, normally you'll be granted an initial stay of 3 years upon entry, and extension applications are very easily considered if you continue to meet the criteria. For employment, the most popular one we have is the General Employment Policy Scheme. You will need to have a confirmed offer of employment for that. And usually the employer will also have to justify why the vacancy cannot be filled in by locals. But this is the most popular scheme here. So between January to June this year, the government has already approved 11,000 work visas under this scheme. But as I mentioned earlier, so Hong Kong has recently launched this Top Talent Pass scheme. This opens now a new, flexible door to international talent, including Indians who may be interested in working or establishing a business here. Under this scheme, so there is no need to first provide a business plan or to secure an employment. It allows foreign nationals who meet certain income requirements. So either if they have an annual income of 2.5 million Hong Kong dollars or above, or certain educational background requirements. So if they are graduates of the world's top 100 universities and they have about 3 years of work experience over the past 5 years, they would be eligible for this visa for 2 years. And during this period, of course, they can, they'll be entitled to work, they can change employers, or they can establish a business here. The last scheme that I want to quickly touch upon is the immigration arrangements for non-local graduate scheme, which I think is very useful for Indian students for doing a full-time undergrad or higher degree in Hong Kong. So students can apply for this visa within 6 months of their graduation. They will not be required to have secured an offer of employment. In fact, between January to June this year, the department accepted about 8,000 applications and 68 were from Indian students. So new businesses, I think, that are looking to set up in Hong Kong, they can always make use of this talent pool when they're recruiting employees. Well, in terms of the process, I think at the end of the day, visa applications are all subject to the discretion of the immigration department. But I can tell you this much, that the process is very straightforward. The information you need is all very nicely available on the department's website in a lot of detail. The application fees for visas or even extensions is only 230 Hong Kong dollars, especially when you compare it to other countries. It's quite low. The processing time is around 6 to 8 weeks. And most importantly, you can bring your spouse and your dependent children under the age of 18 under dependent visas here. And your spouse can also take up employment in Hong Kong. After 7 years of residency, then you can apply for your permanent residency, which is again very quick, very streamlined. I'm now a permanent resident here, but I did not apply for a Hong Kong passport. Personally, I don't want to renounce my Indian citizenship. Also, I think it's not very difficult for Indian passport holders here to apply for visas to different countries. So most consulates are very conveniently located in and around Central. And they normally just take like 3 to 5 working days for processing visas. And to be honest, like Hong Kong was never on my radar. Even when I moved, I thought I'd spend like 2 years here. I'll see how it goes. And here we are, 9 years down, and I can't get enough of this place. And I think, yeah, that brings me to the end of the presentation. I hope that we were able to give you a better understanding of the setting up process. And if not, of course, you're more than welcome to reach out to me, to Mr. Wong, if you have any questions. For Indians who are looking to move to Hong Kong, I think I just want to emphasize that we do have a very vibrant community of Indians here in Hong Kong who are all there to help. There is a forum of Indian professionals. It provides an excellent platform to network, to interact with each other. It's also taking on issues which are relevant to the Indian community, and it works very closely, in fact, with the Consul General of India. I'm also part of the South Asian Lawyers Group. Again, it's comprised of many Indian origin solicitors, barristers, judges, law students. I didn't even think we would have that many in Hong Kong when I moved here. And we try to come together on a regular basis. It works very closely with its members, and the whole idea is to promote, mentorship, internship opportunities for young lawyers, ethnic minorities, and it also provides an excellent, I think, opportunity for legal professionals who are moving from India to form new useful connections. So yeah, that's all, and I'll be, again, as I said, more than happy to assist with any queries. And thank you once again to all the attendees for taking the time, and to the esteemed panelists, and especially to R&M, to Raghu, and also to Pratichi for your superb organization. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thanks so much, Ashima, for that. And before I let you off, I'm going to ask you something on a lighter mode. We are in cricket season and the World Cup is going on. And you were obviously singing paeans of praise for Hong Kong. So when India and Hong Kong do play cricket together, who do you support? I'm very curious to know.
India all the way. It doesn't matter if we are sitting in, whichever club, wherever we are, it is India all the way. In fact, I have, I have friends who play for the cricket team here, but again, for the women's cricket team, in fact.
Wonderful. I'm sure you won the hearts of all the attendees over here.
Like I said, the Indian citizenship, like everything is so dear to us here. Like we hold on to all these things. So yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ashima, for that and the personal insight. We're going to very quickly move on to the next topic, which is transfer pricing and tax issues. Prakash sir, welcome. The question is, what is transfer pricing? So we're going to break it down into something very, very simple and start with what is transfer pricing and how are the transfer pricing regulations in India evolving? And then maybe we could talk about a little bit of the nuances of some of the case laws. So over to you, Prakash sir.
Thank you, Raghu sir. Just to begin, the transfer pricing regulations have been in force since 2001 actually. So these regulations are broadly on the lines of the OECD TP guidelines. The TP guidelines, the regulations provides for an arm's length price, like ALP. What should be an ALP? I'm just going to discuss later. It provides for the arm's length price for computation of income or allowance of an expenditure arising from the transactions between the two associated enterprises or the related parties. So what is an international transaction? So international transaction is defined to mean a transaction entered into between two or more associated enterprises, either or both of whom are non-residents. Maybe either one of may be a non-resident or the both parties may be non-resident, and which has a bearing on the profits, income, losses, or assets of the enterprises. This may include purchase, sale, transfer, lease of a tangible or intangible asset, maybe capital financing, second, then provision of services, maybe business restructuring or reorganization, maybe mergers, acquisitions, all those things. These are the transactions which are covered. Apart from these transactions, there are other transactions also, maybe cost allocation arrangements, maybe cost contributions, maybe reimbursement of expenses. When a foreign company is incorporated, there might be reimbursement of expenses. All the transactions are covered under the TP regulations. So what is the arm's length price? What is an ALP? So ALP has been defined to be a price which is applied in a transaction between persons other than an associated enterprises in uncontrolled conditions. That means ALP attempts to maintain a fair value of transaction between the companies that are related. If two parties are related, there should be a fair value of transaction. Means there should not be any tax avoidance or base erosion or shifting of the taxes. There are a couple of, there are 5-6 methods how the TP is being computed, like the transfer pricing has been computed. The first method is the comparable uncontrolled price method, which is generally called CUP method. Then is the cost plus method. Then is the resale price method. Then is the profit split method. Then comes the transactional net margin method, which is popularly called as TNM method. There are other, then if all these methods are not prescribed, there is other method also, which may be prescribed by the board, and they have prescribed some other methods also. There are compliance requirements. Generally, when there are TP transactions in India, we have to comply with the regulatory authorities, that the income tax department, and we need to file a form 3CEB, which is being certified by a chartered accountant on or before the 30th of November of the fiscal year. Now coming to the documentation, what kind of documentation I need to maintain to substantiate my transfer pricing transactions? So taxpayers are required to maintain the comprehensive documentation in order to substantiate their arm's length price. So they have to give the description of the business of the taxpayers, the relationship with the associated enterprises, the description of the industry, generally, in which industry they are operating, software, ITES, or manufacturing, what kind of industry they are operating. Then the nature and terms of the transactions with each AE. There will be an agreement for each and every transaction, how the transaction is being entered, what is the basis of entering into transaction. Then the analysis of the functions, risk assumed, and the assets employed by the taxpayers and the associated enterprises. That is the FAR analysis method. How I have employed the assets, how have the risks are being assumed, who is assuming the risks, how the assets are employed, how the distribution is being done. All those things we need to give the TP documentation. Then we also need to record and analysis the uncontrolled transactions taken in account for the comparison. There will be a lot of comparisons which will be done for the companies, like how the profits will be derived, what should be the comparables, how the some filters will be done, and how the comparables will be reduced. All those things are there. We need to maintain those documents. Then we also need to provide the description of the method selected. I have told the 5 methods earlier. What are the method? Resale price method, cost plus method, transactional net marginal method. So how I have arrived that method, I need to substantiate that thing in my TP report. Apart from that, I also need to maintain the actual working carried out for computing my ALP. How I have come to my ALP, what are the costs which have been included in my operating cost, all those things I need to substantiate. Then in order to have an alignment, the BEPS has been into introduction. In the action plan 13 of the BEPS, that is base erosion and profit shifting, the Indian TP regulation also needs to maintain a 3-tier documentation. Along with this local file, there has been other files which we need to maintain to substantiate the documents. The one is the master file, and secondly is the country by country reporting, that is the CBCR file. So these are the documentation. From the documentation perspective, these are the documents which we need to maintain. But there are, apart from like, I just gave a brief introduction on the transfer pricing methods and how we need to maintain the documentation. Apart from that, there are a lot of challenges. There are a lot of challenges how we need to combat with the TP transfer pricing regulations. The main challenges is with the digitization. So as we are moving forward, there has been a lot of digitization. So the products, services are all available through the digitization. The data will be minute data or the minuscule data, or what kind of data is there. We need to check that data. So we need to have, like, one of the trend is the digitization enables to offer new products, services. I might be sitting in US and giving a product or services to the Indian companies. So how I will attribute those services and products in India? Then we have the tax transparency. We need to, there's growing pressure from the tax authorities and the international organizations that we need to combat with the base erosion and profit shifting. That is the BEPS, I already told you. That is in action with the Action Plans 30, which refers to the strategies that MNCs, the multinational corporations, use to reduce their tax liability by shifting profits to the low tax jurisdiction. Generally, they want to shift their profits to the low tax jurisdiction so that they can reduce their tax liability. So what will happen in these cases? I have to see how I maintain the documentation. So there is this country by country reporting, then transfer pricing documentation, then dispute resolution. There have been a lot of dispute resolution mechanisms, maybe safe harbor rules, then the advanced pricing arrangements, which have been come into place to combat all these TP litigations. Now coming to the TP litigations, this has been transfer pricing regulations have come from 2001. It has been almost 2 decades. Since the transfer pricing rules have come into India, and there have been a lot of litigations. To be precise, there are a lot of litigations, and the litigations have been high-pitched litigations. It is not a small amount of amount which has been involved. There's a high-pitched litigation, and the tax controversies have traveled up to tribunal level. Now, recently, also there were rulings that ITAT will be the final fact-finding authority in relation to the TP transactions, but the Supreme Court has recently developed an ruling saying that the TP transactions can even be appealed before the High Court, because that involves a substantial question of law. Earlier, the authorities were saying the TP transactions should be limited to the High Court, to the tribunal level only, income tax appellate level only. But now they are saying you can travel up to the High Court also, and then if further required, you can travel to the Supreme Court also. So what the regulations in India have brought to combat these things, there are, as I told you, 2 things which have been come in picture. One is the safe harbor rules, and the second is the advanced pricing arrangement. So what is safe harbor rule? Safe harbor rule is nothing but a special regime for taxpayers, under which the tax authority shall accept the transfer price what is being declared by the taxpayer. So there are certain conditions how I will declare my transfer pricing price and all those things. If the authorities is satisfied with all my calculations and workings and other things, they will agree for the safe harbor rules. And then the advanced pricing arrangement, like due to lot of litigations, this advanced pricing arrangement is nothing in advance only. I will apply before an authority the set of criteria to determine the arm's length price. So you can see the map in between India and US. There is a map, mutual agreement procedure resolution, where if there is a litigation in advance, I can apply and come to a final pricing, maybe software development services, maybe at 17.5% or 18.5%, in order to avoid the litigations where the authorities will say, no, it is 30%, 40% on your method. So in order to avoid all those litigation in advance only, I can apply for the advanced pricing arrangements, where we have seen this kind of arrangements later in order to mellow down all the litigations. Apart from this, my conclusion is there has been a lot of litigations. Obviously, whenever the new law comes, it takes its own times to settle down. And it has been 20 years, almost 2 decades. But there has been a lot of litigations. But such litigations are being now mellowed down by APA and safe harbor rules. But still, India is a manufacturing hub, as we all know. They want a clear-cut guidelines. So the government must improve the supply chain and attract investors by providing certain tax certainty to the investors, which will also help us in the ease of doing business. That is the final line.
Thank you so much, Prakash sir. So on a lighter note, if an Indian corporate wants to reduce their tax, and as my friend Mr. Thomas Wong had earlier said, Hong Kong has only 16.5, and we try and shift the profits to Hong Kong, then obviously you and the transfer pricing advisors will come knocking and say, hold on, Mr. Businessman, you cannot do that. So yes, I think that is how I was trying to connect why we're talking about transfer pricing when we're talking about India and Hong Kong, right? Because these are some of the aspects which traditionally people have been thinking about, that, Hong Kong is very low tax. Let's kind of shift some profits there. But I think the taxman today is a little wiser. He's one step ahead. So thank you for that. I'd like to quote at this point Henry Ford, who had said that paying attention to simple little things that most men neglect makes a few men rich. So for all of those who want to be rich, I hope you don't miss out and pay attention to the tax regulations around transfer pricing. These are key points to remain rich and to become rich. With that, we're going to shift gears to the next topic, which is ease of setting up a company in Gift City. And Jagruti ma'am is there to explain to us from Bombay what is all about Gift City. So, ma'am, before we go into what is Gift City, and is it an interesting jurisdiction for an overseas investor looking to do business in India? Over to you, Jagruti ma'am.
Thank you, Raghuji, and good evening to everyone. Today's topic is a very interesting topic of setting up an unit in a Gujarat International Financial Tax City, which is a dream project of our Indian Prime Minister, Mr. Narendra Modi. Spread across 250 acres of the land in the heart of Gujarat, Gandhinagar, it is a fully integrated, best-in-class infrastructure, connectivity, people, technology, and legal framework. It is India's only approved international financial service center designed to encourage export and foreign investments. Now, recently, as per the latest available information, more than 300 units are already set up in this Gift City, which includes banking, insurance companies, capital markets, including international financial stock exchanges, brokers, other intermediaries, and ancillary services. The framework of Gift City is so suitable for capital markets, being Hong Kong being a financial hub for China. This location is really suitable for capital markets, international bullion exchanges, financing and leasing with special reference to aircrafts and ships, ship financing, ship acquisition, fintech companies, fund management companies, those who are catering to ESG, environment, or special situation funds or family offices. Two large Indian high net worth individuals, Mr. Narayan Murthy and Mr. Azim Premji, has recently announced that they are also looking for setting up their family investment fund in Gift City. And other HNIs are also looking to explore this option because the Gift City provides very interesting infrastructure plus too many tax exemption. Why would somebody like to set up an entity in a Gift City? First of all, there are too many tax advantages, there are too many corporate law benefits, and also it provides an infrastructure where you can invest or deal in any other foreign currency other than Indian rupees. Let us move first of all to the tax incentives which are available to the units set up in Gift City. For those units which are set up in Gift City and having the registration of IFSC, they have a 100% tax exemption for 10 consecutive years out of 15 years from the date of their incorporation or their setup in the Gift City. As these are the Indian setup entities, they have to follow Indian tax regime. If they follow a normal tax regime, they will have a reduced or half of the applicable MAT, minimum alternate tax, or alternate minimum tax at 9%. If they are following with the new tax regime, this MAT tax is not applicable to them. Dividend distributed by this entities, that is the corporates, is to be taxed in the hands of the shareholders, and the company did not tax these entities. If you are a fund house, you have a benefit of tax neutral relocation of the offshore funds to this Gift City for the fund transfer taking place before 31st of March 2025. Suppose you are an investor who are investing or giving money or lending money to the units which are situated in Gift City, then the interest income which you have earned out of this unit is non-taxable because they are non-residents. Interest income on the long-term bonds and the rupee denominated bonds listed on IFSC exchange will be taxable at the reduced rate of 4% if these are issued before 1st of July 2023, and it will be taxed at 9% if it is issued after 1st July 2023. Transfer of the specified securities, which are like bonds, DDRs, foreign currency denominated bonds, rupee denominated bonds of an Indian company, derivatives, units of mutual funds, or shares or other units from the alternative investment funds. If you are transferring such units, which are listed on the IFSC exchange by the non-resident or the category 3 AIF, alternate investment funds located in IFSC, it is not to be treated as transfer. Therefore, it is not taxable to the capital gains tax which are applicable in India. NRIs who are earning dividend income out of the units which are situated in this IFSC, they have a flat tax of 10% plus surcharge and applicable cess against 20% of the tax in the normal tax regime if the NRI would have earned the dividend income from normal Indian companies. The interesting part is goods and service tax. Goods and service tax is applicable across India for all the entities. However, those units who are dealing through GIFT City, they do not have any applicability of GIFT tax either on the goods and services received in the units in IFSC or the goods and services provided or transferred or exported out of this IFSC and SEZ units. GST, however, is applicable if you are dealing with the domestic tariff India, that is within Indian territories. For investors, there are no GST applicability. There are further state subsidies which are available for the unit set up in GIFT City, which is in the form of provident fund contribution for the employees, electricity charges which are reimbursed by the state government, that is Gujarat government, up to 100% for the 5 years. They have an interest subsidy on the term loans, which is up to 5 years, up to 7% of the loan, and accrued interest up to maximum of up to rupees 10 million. They also have a subsidy on the lease rentals, operating and lease subsidy. For the investors, whatever they have invested or they are transferring or selling or dealing in the securities, they have an exemption from securities transaction tax, commodity transaction tax, stamp duty, whatever transactions which are being carried out on IFSC exchanges. Please note that the unit needs to have a registration in IFSC. If the unit is a company which is set up in Indian territory under GIFT City, they have an exemption, very welcome exemption from corporate social responsibility provisions for the 5 years from the date of commencement of their operations. They need not have a residential director for the first year of their incorporation. They need not have even the internal audit requirement, even if they are running beyond the limits which have been set up. Only if it has been provided in the articles of association of such companies that they will not have any internal audits. They do not have a requirement to set up any committees which are mandatory under Securities and Exchange Laws of India, which is Audit Committee, Nomination and Remuneration Committee. Even the managers and the directors who are appointed on the board of these companies, the limits for providing or giving the managerial remuneration does not apply to these entities. This IFSC company can follow the same financial year as that of their holding company. So they need not have April to March financial year, which is mandatory for the Indian entities. Their EGM, that is annual general meeting, can be held and they within or outside India, subject to the shareholders' approval. It need not be at the place where the registered office of the company is situated, that is Gujarat. With this, so many advantages which are being available in GIFT City and high-class infrastructure which is available for foreign trades, it is easy to set up an entity in the GIFT City. What an entity needs to do, whether it is a foreign entity or an Indian business houses who wants to set up an entity in GIFT City, they have to identify the office space in this area and they have to enter into a co-developer executing a letter of intent. Once this letter of intent is available, they will have a provisional letter of allotment and NOC by the co-developer who is developing this GIFT City. Once you have this, you can incorporate a company or a limited liability partnership firm or any such entity which is permitted to be incorporated in GIFT City. With this, you have to make an application in the Form F, which is an online application on the website of SEZ for the Development Commissioner, directing to Development Commissioner along with all the requisite information, documents, and letter of intent, a letter of allotment, your incorporation documents, and your intent to run the business along with the project report for 2 years. Once you make an application in Form F to Development Commissioner, along with that, you make an application to IFSC authority so that both the registrations can run parallel. Development Commissioner, you will, upon your presentation before him, they have the meeting on 1st and 3rd Wednesday of every month. They will go through your presentation and they will either make a decision to give you an approval or reject an application, which will be provided with the reasons, and you will have a chance to reapply along with your corrected documents. Once your registration is approved, even IFSC is taking almost around 30 to 45 days to give the registration certificate. Both these certificates will come simultaneously. Your unit will be registered with, you will be issued a letter stating that you will have to start an operations within 6 months from the issuance of this letter of allotment. Once you have this letter of allotment, you can formally register the lease agreement with the SEZ authorities, gift city authorities, and you can start your operations, confirm your acceptance along with this lease agreement, submit it to the state authorities, and your things are done. Once you are completing this registration process, it is very important that you start the business operation. It is mandatory to intimate your first date of export of service to the Office of Development Commissioner through an application containing the subject commencement of business operations with all the supporting evidence like invoices, tax invoices, and your letter from the custom authorities, whatever is your kind of services that you need to submit to the development commissioner. Also mark a copy to Gift City SEZ developers. This is a simple process of incorporation, but that's not enough. Main thing is to operate and open a bank account. Opening a bank account requires a lot of documentation which are duly certified by the chartered accountants, by the lawyers, by the notary authorities, by your place where the holding company is situated. You have to open the bank account only with the banking unit which is operating through this IFSC center. Right now, there are almost around 10 private and nationalized banks which are operating through this gift city. You have to make a disclosure along with the annexures for Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act, that is FATCA Act. If it is a company or an LLP, please provide the copy of the board resolutions, your list of present directors, as well as the partners, their proof of appointment, all your filing documents, which you have already done with the authorities, your constitution documents like certificate of incorporations, your memorandum of association, that is charter documents, articles of association, your copy with the registrar of companies, and commencement certificate. This bank accounts needs to be operated by any of the directors, or any of the directors. You need a proof of the signatories, their authorized signatory self-attested entities authorization. If they are Indian persons, their Aadhaar card and PAN card. If they are international, NRIs, then you need their unique identification code or some country registration requirement. You need to have a yeah.
I think in summary, if I can sum up, I think we will ensure that Jagruti is there to help in setting up the Gift City company. But the sounds of it, Mr. Thomas Wong said in the beginning of our webinar, setting up Hong Kong still sounds much easier than setting up in Gift City. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, not really, because this gift city, the requirement is quite high, but it allows only transactions in the foreign currency. So they just need an assurance that somebody is not doing the transaction only for the purpose of money laundering or dealing in, it's basically going to be a financial center. So if you're dealing on the exchanges or you are setting up a fund, it's not to symphonize or to harm any public interest. So it's a KYC documentation which generally every jurisdiction asks for. But otherwise, it is quite easier to set up the entity.
All right. So thank you so much for that, Jagruti ma'am. I think it was very detailed, and I'm sure a lot of us learned a lot about Gift City. With that, we're going to move to the Q&A section, and we have our first question for Mr. Thomas Wong. Mr. Wong, the question comes: despite political tension between countries, why India is still doing business with Hong Kong and China? I mean, I know we're more accountants, but just your view. I think you talked about cooperation earlier, so I just want to take your view on that question.
My view is very simple. We talk business and then business will resolve many things. I think we should not be obsessed what is being seen right now, because things are not permanent. They come and go. Many things we can see that things are not permanent. They come and go. So we should not be obsessed, by one particular environment. And this is what I have learned from India. Shikhamani.
Yes,
Buddhism. Okay.
absolutely. Thank you so much. That was a really good answer. Ashman, the next question is for you. Are there any business related activities which are permissible on a visitor visa in Hong Kong?
On a visitor visa, yes. So you can come here on a visitor visa, which is, as some of you may know, it's become very easy now. All you need to do is just fill out a pre-arrival registration form. You can stay up to 14 days. It's absolutely free. And when you come here, you can conduct business negotiations. You can enter into contracts. You can also participate in exhibitions here. You can't really sell goods or supply services, but you can participate in the exhibitions. You can, hold seminars, product orientations, and in fact, you can also attend arbitration proceedings on a short-term basis. But just to flag here that, the regulations here again are very strict. They make it very clear that if you're a visitor, you cannot engage in work. And if you contravene this condition of stay, you can, there's a strict fine and also imprisonment. So
yes, we're not going to cross any boundaries. Absolutely. The next question is also for you, Ashma. I think you're very.
Yes, I was looking at it.
Is it employee friendly or employer friendly? I think
personally, I would just say that it should not matter. Like, if you abide by the laws, I don't see why, you should think if it's employer friendly or employee friendly. Of course, I think employers have all the resources to fight a case or fight a dispute, but at the end of the day, if you're, following the regulations and you're doing right, then there's no need to worry about that.
Very diplomatically put. Well handled. So I think we're going to end this session by quoting what Barack Obama said. Change will not come if we wait for some other person or some other time. We are the ones we've been waiting for. We are the change that we seek. So with those words, I hope all of you pursue your India-Hong Kong business dream and make that dream a reality, achieve your goals for a better future. Good day. Thank you so much. Namaskar to everybody, and all the best to all the delegates and participants.
Bye, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everybody.